On July 24, 2025, Hulk Hogan passed away due to cardiac issues at the age of 71. What he left behind is a legacy unlike any other in pro wrestling, but a tainted legacy. There's no denying that. We're not denying that. And obviously, it's something that is well publicized and certainly a part of the discourse since his passing. But this is not that kind of video. This is a comprehensive look back at his influential career as a pro wrestler, as the pro wrestler in the eyes of many. Hulk Hogan is just that. For wrestling as a whole, it's worth honoring his career and legacy, and the impact he made and how others followed it. This retrospective will be meaningful for lifelong fans, but obviously younger fans can learn a lot about how much of a mark he made, not simply just the man you heard and read about in the controversial scandals since the 2010s. This is Sportskeeda Wrestling. I'm Kevin Kellum, and this is the immortal career of Hulk Hogan. Get into the comments below. Let us know the big moments that you remember from Hulk Hogan's career and why. Hit a like button as well, and subscribe to Sportskeeda Wrestling for more videos just like this. Brother! Back when Terry Bollea was not Hulk Hogan, he grew up as a teenager watching wrestling on TV like the rest of us in Tampa, Florida. It was the superstar, Billy Graham, with his massive physique and undeniable charisma that was an early influence. But his actual entry into the world of pro wrestling happened by chance. He used to work out in a gym and cross paths with the son of NWA president Eddie Graham. Eddie Graham was a legendary wrestler and a massive promoter in the region. The Briscoe brothers, another famed wrestling tandem, noticed Bollea's physique as an insane figure at 6'7", a stature that was certainly head-turning, and made him an attractive prototype to turn into a pro wrestler, and successfully convinced him to give wrestling a shot when they saw him performing in a rock band called Ruckus. The Briscoes convinced the hard-willed Japanese wrestler Hiro Matsuda to train the blonde bass player for the ring. And let's just say that Matsuda had a bit of a reputation when it came to how he treated his students, and the young Terry Bollea had to learn this the hard way, allegedly. So the story goes, Matsuda broke Hulk Hogan's leg or ankle in the first of their few training sessions together, which has been debated before. Whether it was a leg break or a sprain, what Matsuda successfully did was teach Bollea what respect meant in the wrestling business. Fast forward to the summer of 1977, and Bollea officially made his in-ring debut, but not as Hulk Hogan. No, he did it under a mask as the Super Destroyer, being the successor of a Canadian wrestler named Don Jardine. Bollea's rise was happening during the tail end of the territory days and the rise of the WWE. When he was in Alabama, he met a man who would become his best friend for years to come, Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Back then, just known as Ed Leslie, he and Hogan got along and they formed a team and went by the names Terry Boulder and Ed Boulder. The origin of Hulk Hogan's name, though, was on a talk show not too long after this. Bollea appeared on camera alongside Lou Ferrigno, who then portrayed the muscle-bound monster, the Incredible Hulk, on television between 1977 and 1982. Lou was a big guy at 6'5" and well over 300 pounds. The only problem is when Ferrigno appeared on camera alongside Bollea, he looked small in comparison. In Hogan's My Life Outside the Ring memoir, he noted that he went backstage and wrestling promoter Jerry Jarrett told him he was sitting on TV looking bigger than the Hulk. So moving forward, Jarrett would bill him in the wrestling territory as Terry the Hulk Boulder. His rise in the business began to take a fast turn. He was competing for the NWA World Heavyweight title with less than 2 years of wrestling experience under his belt. For context, the NWA World Heavyweight Championship was bar none the single most prestigious title in all of wrestling at the time. Terry Boulder, as he was called then, didn't capture the world title, but Terry Funk introduced him to someone that would certainly get him on more eyeballs across the world. The wrestling promoter who dominated the northeastern region of the United States, Vince McMahon Sr., who understandably took a liking to Boulder's eye-catching physique and gave him the other part of his name, Hogan. But Hogan's early years in the promotion that would eventually become the WWE was as a villain, and he would challenge baby faces like Bob Backlund, and a certain giant you'll hear a lot more later on about in this video. It was 1980. Wrestling journalist and photographer Bill Apter was approached by the production company of Sylvester Stallone, one of the biggest movie stars in the world, seeking photos and contact information for several magnetic wrestling talents, including Hogan, who would soon be in line for Stallone's next blockbuster film, Rocky III, in the role of a wrestler who's quite braggadocious by the name of Thunderlips. This was a huge opportunity to do something as a pro wrestler and represent the art form to a bigger audience. But McMahon Sr. simply did not want showbiz mixing with the wrestling business. Hogan claimed that he had a disagreement with Vince McMahon Sr. over the role and was offered it for Rocky III. But there were some serious contradictory accounts of this. Hogan claimed that Vince Sr. threatened to fire him if he took the role, and it led to him storming off and taking a flight across the country to LA anyway. Whatever the true exact story is, the fact remains that Hogan was done with Vince McMahon Sr. and WWE, or WWF at the time as it was known. His time with the Triple WF gave him exposure to the Japanese market, New Japan Pro Wrestling. And this led to a very interesting relationship with him, and he would become a massive superstar there. Wrestling a harder, more violent style as Ichiban #1, Hogan would become one of the biggest names in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Still, Hogan balanced his stardom in the United States with the American Wrestling Association, the standout promotion in the Midwest, ran by wrestling veteran Vern Gagne, and this was after his appearance in Rocky III, and he was a massive star right off the bat for Gagne and his territory. He quickly ascended to the status of #1 good guy in AWA. But there was a serious reoccurring issue. Another person from the old guard of wrestling, like Vince McMahon Sr., but now in Gagne, simply didn't get the whole idea of this flashy, muscle-bound, blonde-haired guy becoming the next guy. Gagne made Hogan a star in the AWA, but he simply wasn't going to make him the AWA World Champion, even through all these dusty finishes and winning the title only to reverse the decision. Gagne reportedly kept pressing Hogan for some unreasonable demands, wanting a share of his earnings over in Japan, among other things, all while Hogan was killing it for New Japan, even won an early version of the IWGP title. The differences between Gagne and Hogan became so much that he decided to leave, and luckily the timing for Hogan coincided with a massive shift in the Northeast territory of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. Vincent Kennedy McMahon purchased the Worldwide Wrestling Federation from his father, who wasn't doing too well health-wise at the time. Vince Jr., who had been around the business a majority of his life and was a broadcast personality, had a very different vision for professional wrestling in his mind, especially compared to his father and other wrestling promoters around the country. He wanted to take it national, which was unheard of at that time, and then go even global, making pro wrestling, or his WWE as it would become, a part of the mainstream pop culture. To do that, he needed a figurehead. He needed the right star, a superstar. It was Hulk Hogan, the right guy at the right place at the right time as all these massive shifts were happening. And it took no time at all for Vince Jr. to pivot in this new direction behind Hogan, because less than a month after his return to the promotion, Hogan was the WWF champion. Back then, villains were more transitional champions to crown the next babyface of the company. And in this case, the unforgettable and revered back-breaking Iron Sheik succumbed to the fury of the Hulkster in Madison Square Garden in 1984. It was the birth of Hulkamania. On the broadcast call, Gorilla Monsoon cemented it with the line, "Hulkamania is here." Soon followed the famous mantra, "Train, say your prayers, and eat your vitamins." Hulk Hogan professing himself to the younger viewers to get behind him, and he would become their all-American He-Man. In a very patriotic time, he was defeating the foreign villain and becoming the champ. It led to the biggest boom in professional wrestling that they had ever seen at that time. This was Hulkamania. This was WWF. This was different. Yes, it used traditional wrestling psychology, but match quality, the technical athletic wrestling, were not as important. The personality, the charisma, the outstanding showmanship, and the larger-than-life ability of Hulk Hogan to be a central attraction led the way with a cast of supporting characters. Fans wanted to see Hogan, now draped in red and yellow colors, ripping his shirt off and flexing his muscles and overcoming the villains. It was 1985 onward, and we would see things take a massive leap. Hogan was the face of wrestling, and Vince McMahon's vision of pro wrestling was becoming mainstream and being realized with massive new media deals, with Hulk Hogan at the helm of it all. The connections with MTV, broadcast deals with NBC never seen before, pay-per-view, most importantly, Wrestlemania put all this into place. The WWF was the place to be for pro wrestlers, and everywhere else was just everywhere else. Hulk Hogan was rapidly becoming a global icon that transcended pro wrestling. The success of WrestleMania 1 meant that WWE was off to the races. And around the time WWE introduced Saturday night's main event, it was a quarterly television special, and it was a show that heavily revolved around Hulk Hogan and his defenses of the now WWE Championship. Opponents came and went, but it didn't matter who they were. They were all Hall of Famers. Terry Funk, Paul Orndorff, Bob Orton, King Kong Bundy, or anyone else, the Hulkster overcame the odds as millions watched and cheered on, and bought all the merchandise in the process. Before John Cena became Mr. Make-A-Wish, Hulk Hogan was the definitive OG in that department. This was way back before social media was a thing, so even all the mainstream TV appearances, he wasn't as overexposed as celebrities usually are nowadays. In the ring, he continued to trample opponents after opponents, town to town, selling out arenas along the way, stacking up impressive victories over the likes of Don Morocco, Hercules Hernandez, and once again that big nasty King Kong Bundy, who he defeated in a steel cage in the main event of a triple coastal event, WrestleMania 2. Before Roman Reigns was headlining WrestleMania after WrestleMania, Hogan was doing it first. It culminated into 1987's WrestleMania 3, a massive turning point for Hulk Hogan, WWE, and the entire genre of pro wrestling. This is where it stopped just being wrestling, as we mentioned, and became really a part of just Americana. The eighth wonder of the world, Andre the Giant, was always a beloved figure and fan-drawing attraction in professional wrestling. But for the first time ever in the eyes of many, he became a villain, turning on Hulk Hogan and aligning himself with Hogan's always despised rival, Bobby the Brain Heenan, in an infamous scene on Roddy Piper's Piper's Pit. Hogan and Heenan were familiar foes back from their days in the AWA, where Heenan managed his rival back then, Nick Bockwinkel, and their animosity was one of the backbones of the rise of the 1980s. When Hogan was on top, Heenan was always on commentary detracting the super popular superstar as an evil contrarian. Add now Andre the Giant, and you had a massive main event for over 93,000 people, allegedly, paying to watch the unstoppable force versus the immovable object, WrestleMania 3 in the Pontiac Silverdome. While the match by most standards isn't a 5-star classic, depending on who you talk to, it delivered a torch-passing moment for sure, from the previous generation to the one that Hogan was leading that year to new highs. It was a truly iconic scene, Hulk Hogan lifting Andre the Giant and slamming him to a massive response. That one move, still etched in the minds of millions, definitively proved one thing that remains true to this day. WrestleMania, the show of shows in wrestling, is all about moments. When you think of WrestleMania moments, this one is the first truly iconic part of that conversation. There's a reason why that piece of footage gets played over and over when people talk about trying to have that big moment at WrestleMania. Hogan and Andre would clash once more on NBC, national television coast to coast, on The Main Event, a spinoff of Saturday night's Main Event, drawing an American record for televised wrestling with 15.2 in the Nielsen ratings and 33 million estimated viewers. Hogan had been the WWE champion for over 4 years at this point, It was inconceivable that anyone except Andre could take the title from him. But on that one night when he faced Andre in a rematch, there was a wicked plan in place. It was all orchestrated by the dastardly rich and greedy $1 million man Ted DiBiase, who conspired to dethrone Hogan at all costs, because everybody has a price. DiBiase's deviance knew no bounds, and his trickery reached all-time highs when we saw referee Earl Hebner take the place of his twin brother David Hebner as the referee, leading to Hulk Hogan getting screwed out of the WWE Championship. Ted DiBiase bought the title off of Andre, and his reign wasn't recognized as legitimate. It was a shock to the system, and for the first time since Hulkamania began, Hogan would be chasing the title. Hogan was such a monster at the box office and the merchandise stands, he didn't need a championship belt to legitimize all of that. WWE had a growing roster of standout talents who all followed Hogan to the land of McMahon and money. Vince McMahon decided to give a chance to another up-and-coming talent, the madness that was Macho Man Randy Savage, who was the number 2 good guy in the company. Wrestlemania 4 at Trump Plaza, a tournament was done to crown a new vacant WWE champion, and Hogan and Andre would face each other again, but a double DQ finish saw them both eliminated. Instead, Hogan helped Randy Savage defeat Ted DiBiase in the finals to become the new WWF or WWE champion, thus beginning the era of the most superpowered team in WWE history up to that point. Though they had massive egos, they certainly had an uneasy alliance that formed with the graceful First Lady of Wrestling, Miss Elizabeth, nurturing a duo that would be known as the Mega Powers. A handshake would seal the deal, and we would never forget it. It was probably the best storyline Hogan had in the 80s, and definitely one of the best in Macho Man's career as they wreaked havoc over the WWE. They were the ultimate good guy pairing, but at some point, you know it wouldn't last for long. It set the stage for many such storylines in the future, but it was rare at this time to see an odd pairing of 2 individualized superstars as a tag team with such a slow-burning buildup over a year. The egos were constantly clashing between the Hulkster and Macho Man Randy Savage. Their jealousy over Hogan's association or assumed association with Miss Elizabeth, Macho Man's main squeeze, proved to be the straw that broke the camel's back. Yeah, the Mega Powers would implode in 1989 on live TV, setting the stage for another massive WrestleMania main event. And the Mega Powers would explode in the main event of WrestleMania 5. During the first of the 2 Royal Rumble matches that the Hulkster would win, the big multi-man over-the-top Elimination Classic in January, he would have a moment going eye to eye, having a showdown with one of the fastest rising talents in the wrestling business. Someone that was being called the next Hulk Hogan for a while, the Ultimate Warrior. The real-life action figure that was the Ultimate Warrior had a meteoric jump to the top when he ended the Honky Tonk Man's record 454-day reign as the WWE Intercontinental Champion. The Warrior was on a tear, and the tease at the Rumble set the stage for another massive WrestleMania main event. Vince McMahon tried his luck at building Warrior up to be Hogan's successor, which is why the Ultimate Warrior defeated the Hulkster in the main event of WrestleMania 6 in 1990 in Toronto. It led to Hogan getting a few deserved months off, carrying WWE and pro wrestling on his back for so many years. The experiment, though, with the Ultimate Warrior didn't really work out, which is why by early 1991, the controversial Iraqi sympathizer, Sergeant Slaughter, who was doing all the sympathizing while the United States was in a military conflict with Iraq, would dethrone the Ultimate Warrior at the Royal Rumble under some very nefarious tactics, and a highly tense volatile feud would play out where Hogan had to defend the honor of America against Sergeant Slaughter at WrestleMania 7. Hogan helped establish WWE as a global brand, but what he would do next would expand the reach of wrestling in a way that many never expected. We'll dive into that in our next retrospective of Hulk Hogan's historic career. What did you think of the age of Hulkamania? Were you a Hulkamaniac as a kid? What do you think is Hulk Hogan's biggest moment from this time in his career? Sound off in the comments below, and thank you for watching. brother.